Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies. Grab your favorite bevy, pull up a chair, and enjoy the ride. Hey, B&B fam. This podcast is sponsored to you by BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. Is there something getting in the way of your happiness? I know when I traveled the world, I had many days where BetterHelp's worldwide service of licensed professional therapists could have helped me speak to someone no matter where I was in the world about whatever was happening with my life, and with zero judgment. With their ability to match me with a therapist that best fits me, I know my mental health would have been way better back then. Believe me, I needed it. But I'm here to share a way for you to take back control of your mental health by telling you about BetterHelp's awesome services they have for you to talk with a pro about your life through their app or just online. Whether it is a video session or some simple messaging, their team is here to help. I went to check out the app for myself just to see how easy it was to use, and after a series of questions, I was told I would be able to start matching with a therapist in under 48 hours. And what is super rad is that it's affordable and they even offer financial aid too. So come join the 2 million users that have already been helped and gain back control of your mental health by visiting betterhelp.com/backyards for 10% off your first month. Remember, BetterHelp is therapy done securely online. Don't forget to use the special code BACKYARDS and let BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, help you to start living a happier life today. All right. Good morning, Backyards and Bevvies.
That's right.
We are here with Jim and Jim's Radio Hour, if you couldn't tell by the sign right here.
Right. Yeah.
I have toured with Jim for a while, and I don't know, maybe a year ago you started this show, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, Jim has a radio show, and it blew my mind.
And you have a podcast.
So I said, well, what a perfect way to get together here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, the radio show is more music-based.
We'll totally get to exactly how awesome it is, but it blew my mind on how creative people are getting.
Right.
And to have a radio show, though, I always thought was super fun. So when I read your title, automatically I was sold. I was like, okay. Then I heard the intro, and I was like, I'm even more sold. But Jim and I toured together on Carrie Underwood.
Correct.
And we've also ran into each other on multiple times because you do backline for a handful of people, and
whoever will pay you.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've seen each other multiple times throughout our
as a surprise, like, oh, what are you doing? Hey, you're here. Hey.
Oh, wow! I didn't.
The funniest was that U.S. Open. I think. It was
my gosh!
U.S. Open.
Yeah.
But you were there not for the show. You were doing the setup, right?
I was doing the Arthur Ashe Day.
Right.
Which was. Like one day before the actual ceremonies and everything started. I totally forgot about that one.
We look up and like, Bill? Jim?
I still come across photos from that day, and that was one of the more interesting shows I've ever been a part of.
That was insane, because the way they ran, you didn't see I was there with Shania, and it was very tight. And putting a band on the court.
Mm-hmm.
For I don't know, 2 or 3 songs. I mean, and how fast, and the special flooring it had to be done, and it was live TV. So the best part is you weren't there, but so you rehearsed the day before, like when I saw you, getting off and on, doing the song, doing the whole thing, the whole bit, and they put the sound booth in the little. A little room, like a bunker that had a little thing. I guess that's where the judges or somebody sits.
I know exactly the room you're talking about. I have a lot of videos from there because it was so trippy because you see TV is such a weird thing too because
different world.
You get there and you're expecting like SNL. You see it on TV. It looks giant. And you're like, how are they have all these different sets?
Right.
Oh, that's cool. There's a bug climbing on the video. That's going to look awesome. Like a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Great, yeah.
But you always expect it to be these big things. And you get there and you're like, so excuse me. You got to slide through here. And they're like, oh, you can't stand there. Don't stand here. But that bunker, they had all the RF for the microphones, and they had all the comm systems for people to communicate throughout the whole system. But I do believe that is where some sort of umpire sit to watch, because I think they have cameras to look at the lines.
Yeah, because it's right there level.
Mm-hmm.
It's not high. It's like almost like a couple feet off. The court.
And they have the netting just in case the ball comes zinging in there.
And we brought. They had video. Oh. I mean, it was the whole package that they set up in like I think 3.5 minutes. So you have, an army of people because you can't roll anything.
And the hallways are tight.
Yeah.
I remember talking to them about that. Like it's almost like a 45-degree turnout.
Yes.
It was. The other cool thing that I got from that was I got some video of them actually redoing the flooring that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Did you see it that day by chance, or did you hear about it?
I know they had to split it in half. It was weird.
Dude.
Yeah, it was crazy.
A few days before everybody showed up, I was in the bunker, and I had just videotaped either Roger Federer or
wow.
and then Rafael Nadal, whatever, I forget how to pronounce his name. But the two awesome dudes. Yeah, the dudes.
Yeah.
And one of them was mentioning how you could see him like he was hitting the floor with his foot, and like he was unhappy, and I was like, oh,
really?
This is like cement floor.
This is the U.S. Open.
This is it's not clay or anything,
right.
So he's not like a pitcher where he's moving the dirt around. A few hours pass, and I go up top to do some speaker stuff, and I look out, and there's a whole team of U.S. Open like officials out there now, and they're all staring at this one spot on the floor. The rug used to be there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
tied the room together.
It really tied the room together. And next thing I know, they have a team out there, and they're removing the paint. Then they're doing the flooring.
Wow.
They kicked everybody out. I mean, no vendors, no nothing. I just happened to have the one room. Yeah. There was like 2 or 3 of us that could go into this one room. Yeah. And I remember like videotaping it because they didn't want anyone to know, because then if it got public and someone said, oh, well, my tennis ball hit that one little spot.
Or somebody could say there's an advantage or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. But that was one of the most trippy out there.
I had one of the craziest experiences. So we used, this Kempers. I don't know if people, the musicians that might know, there's kind of a computer-based amps instead of amplifiers, and it was running. I had 3 units guitar, and there was a steel guitar player that would, play other instruments and run through them. So literally, like I said, you have 3 minutes. And I was doing I think bass player, the steel player, and the guitar player. Typical.
Yep.
So I got the bass, and I made the bass player play on a cable, because I'm like, you're not doing wireless, and we're being safe. As anybody knows, it's either wireless and you got all that stuff. I'm saying you're playing on cable, and he was, not real happy. But I'm like, but yet your stuff's gonna work. And so got him going, got the guitar player going. When it came to steel, nothing was coming out of this unit. Nothing. And we'd rehearsed at a rehearsal studio. We did the run through the day before.
Of course.
Perfect. Everything's done. So the unit set up behind the video screen, the thing, and it's facing. So I'm literally like trying to figure it out, reset it, patch it, everything you can think of, to get this thing going again. Yep. So
powered it off twice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm getting down. I think they're like 1 minute till broadcast. So the stage manager's over there with me. And he's sweating, and I'm just like, we're gonna figure this out. So I keep going. It's like 45 seconds till broadcast. I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So the unit was facing that bunker, and I think it was not the front of house. I think it was the A2. If people know, that means basically the guy that helps set up front of house, does all the patching, and he's the sound valet,
the
sound engineer valet. So he looks, and he's, because we're all, and he looks, goes, hey, and there was a button that had gotten pressed that I didn't even like. It was a lock, unlock or lock, and it goes, hey, is this it? Bam! It was on. It was on. I had 10 seconds till airtime, and the stage manager, our guy, he was like, "We gotta go, and I go. I was like this, and all of a sudden it's on.
It's on.
Okay, let's go.
All right, we're good.
And ran off to get off the air. That's how close That was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even, I couldn't see the front panel because of where it was.
But that
was
one
in the back.
guy.
And I think, when the massive 50 people setting everything up,
100%.
Somebody must have bumped something. Isn't that crazy? That was that show.
That was that show. And I feel like you should have gotten on the bus and been like, hey guys, how'd you like my joke?
Yeah, like that. I like to start big.
I like to get everybody sweating early in the morning.
We like to just start off.
It was a tennis match. We wanted a little competition here, right?
Yeah. Oh, and on the same one of our hands got into a fight with one of their hands. Our drum tech got in a fight with one of their hands because when we were tearing it down during the trial the day before, he was taking the drums apart.
Oh my God.
So he got into it it was just like, well, we're at the U.S. Open, ladies and gentlemen, behind the scenes.
Yeah, right.
There's fist fights and amps that don't work.
Because you have to talk in a little quieter voice.
Yes. And here we go with the first serve.
Oh, McEnroe.
Yeah. The things we do, right?
The things we do. And we were lucky enough that we only did that one time.
Right.
We didn't have to do that every day. We were blessed enough to go out on a tour.
Yes.
And live in buses.
Yep.
And that was the first time I think we really hung out was in like 2013 on the Carrie Underwood tour.
Wow.
But you had already been in the business for many years.
Yes.
Out of Nashville?
Well, I started up in Wisconsin, Milwaukee area.
Oh, okay.
But it was in Chicago. I was in a band that we worked out of Chicago. But I still lived in Milwaukee because I had a amazing setup. And kids.
And Summerfest was up there, so you probably had a lot of work with that.
I've played at Summerfest a few times. I was more in a band, and then I had in the 80s, I had a small PA when one band broke up, and I bought the PA, so for about a year or so, learned that.
Yeah.
So I learned how to do monitor, but this is analog. This is the 80s, so I had
you.
my own little club PA. I think the biggest band, Violent Femmes at the time, they weren't.
Violent Femmes, yeah.
Yeah, they weren't huge. But
I remember them.
Ran sound for had my little PA for that. And, had some par cans.
Were they out of Milwaukee?
Yeah, they're out of Milwaukee.
Oh, interesting.
So and we played. We're pretty successful. Played all over Wisconsin, Minnesota, and all. And I got to open for a bunch of people.
That's cool.
I met my wife. We were opening for the Simple Minds.
Wow.
So don't you forget about me.
I feel like if anything, that's a pretty good, pretty good thing to get out of, doing regional. And everybody, it's funny because, you think about it and everyone wants to get on the big tour buses.
Right.
But you can be just as successful and have just as much fun doing the regional stuff.
It was a bar band. But like I said, we'd do, festivals and open up. The funniest thing about my wife, so she comes to see the show. We basically had replaced a band that I think the bass player or something had broke his wrist or something the night before, so they needed a band right away.
Gotcha.
So we jumped in. Of course, the production gives us only the spotlights. I mean, we couldn't use any of their rigs. We couldn't do any of this. So we get that. And, Jim Kerr, the singer, came out, and he congratulated us and, gave us a bottle of champagne. Thanks a lot. But, anyway, so, at the bar later afterwards, at that time I got the crazy hair with red streak, rods, like I always said, if I looked like I just got out of bed, that was the perfect. But you work on it for a while. But anyway, so,
you don't wash your hair for a few weeks, and it starts to really look good.
So I got the rock star thing going.
What instrument were you playing?
Bass.
Okay, bass.
I had a trench coat, cool, English vibe, whatever. So I meet this, girl at the bar, and I'm like, just open for the Simple Minds. She goes, oh, yeah, I didn't see you guys. I was in the bar. So
you're like, well, we were pretty good.
Yeah, it was my wife,
So you're
thinking, I'm cool.
I'm cool. Nope.
It was like, bam.
Nope. Nope.
Oh, yeah, I didn't come in and see you guys, so,
I heard the name and I didn't like it, so I figured a gin and tonic was way more fun at this point.
Yeah, right.
So well, that's cool.
That's how I met my wife.
And then you stayed up there for a few more years, and then
for quite a while till like I said, different bands. I would do sound at clubs, Teddy's. We'd do sounds like for inner bands, and then just at one point, after being in a bunch of bands and doing sound and basically, breaking your back I went, I got to go somewhere where it's a real, a legitimate business.
For sure.
And one of the things that kind of, even here's how it was in the Milwaukee. I think I went into the bank one time and I was trying to get a loan or, get some kind of thing. And I remember sitting down. This is a bank, I've been, my wife and I, we had kids and, I can't remember what it was about, but anyway, I just remember this when I'm sitting down in the office with the bank, manager or whoever it was, the loan manager. The guy goes, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And at the time, I ran a record store or managed a record store. Plus, that's what I was doing: managed a store, playing other bands, doing sound, running lights, worked for late, anything, and it was all mostly cash,
Yeah.
So anyway, I go in there and I tell the guy, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I run sound, I play, play music, and he goes, but what do you do for an income?
I just told you.
Exactly. So I said, I got to go somewhere that they actually
understand it, though.
It's viable.
Yeah, it's like
business.
Yeah.
Because everybody, back then it was you did everything.
Yeah.
You did everything. I mean, you had to fix the truck that was, on the way to the gig, and
yeah, you had to load it up in the back of the truck.
Yeah,
and you had to take it,
right,
and it was all you.
Yeah. So it's like that's how I started.
Okay.
And then when I thought, well, I need to go somewhere that's, legit.
In Nashville.
Plus I had 2 kids. When I moved here to Nashville, one was in kindergarten and the other was in 3rd grade.
Wow.
So, it was a big, but I don't know what else to do, professional knucklehead, right? That's what we call it.
Professional pirate is what I always say. Yeah, like
road pirates.
Road pirates, yeah.
Yep.
So when you came here, was it pretty easy getting into the business?
Yeah, I mean, I got with the local sound company, and they put me on a truck, and we went around the region with this band called Super T. It was great.
T.
Yeah, it was like a lot of frats. We did a lot of frat parties, Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham.
Oh,
so
man.
Pretty much jumped right into that. And then playing wise, and Nashville's interesting because when you play, there's levels.
Uh-huh.
There's the same thing with touring.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Once you get in the big touring, you're known.
You've made it, yeah.
But if you're going to get into the, opening, it's hard to, anyway. So playing is like that too. So I was playing for like not a lot of money, and I realized, well, I'm not, as a player, some of these cats down here are just amazing. They come from Juilliard and they're Texas, they're super schooled, and I'm like, I'm not that guy.
Like, I'm just trying to go make some money at Tootsie's.
Yeah, right.
Robert's Western.
I'm just a player. I'm just a band player. So that's when I started getting into the back line and just, I know how to set gear up.
I've been setting gear up for a while.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years already. I can do it for somebody else too. So you just learn. I mean, every gig is different.
Yeah. And so you're pretty versed in all backline then. And backline is like the drums to the keyboards. Yep. So you're setting up all the band's gear, in other words.
Right. And Carrie was I think the first time we did it, it was all amps and boxes, wasn't it?
It was. We were carrying those giant ISO cabs that we would plug in, and they had 17 different plugs on them, and you have to wiggle them every once in a while.
I think we had 11, and then we'd remember we build the huge stage, and then this huge stage would roll in place, and then we'd roll all the cabinets under the stage, and they had to go in a certain way, and then we'd plug them up. Yep. So I remember always you were doing the.
I had to plug them in.
Yep, and then you were doing the subs. You were like the.
I was just a PA. Guy. Yeah, I was just a PA guy at that point. That's why I partied so hard.
Hey,
I had no.
I'm not just setting stuff up.
I just plug stuff in for a living.
So, because I remember always giving you grief because y'all had that system where some of the speakers would be backward. When you do bass.
Oh yeah.
There's a new.
The cardioid.
Yeah, the cardioid.
The cardioid.
So it was, Phil, the speaker's backwards.
Why is
this voice pointing under the stage?
It's now that I look back on it, it was like such a dad joke.
Yeah.
Like
as now your dad.
Now I'm a dad. I get it. I'm like, I would say something like that if I was looking at a young kid plugging in speakers, like, hey, the one speaker over there. I loved it, though.
At the time you're playing. Yeah, well, sure. Okay. Good one, Jim.
You always did have a good sense of humor, though. So, like, you could tell that you had been, because that's another thing, too, is sometimes if people just get put in the top, they don't appreciate it, but like if you have gone through all the junk and all the hell and the playing on Broadway to loading in on Broadway to loading out on Broadway to all those things.
God, we could think of
you name it.
Yeah,
and
10 below to 110.
Well, and the one thing that I think always was awesome about like I said, is you always had a fairly happy day. Yeah. Because you get around some people and they're just like, oh yeah. You're like, all right, I need to pass this guy on. I need to give him a wide berth. Yeah. You were always like, hey, how's it going? How's it going? Yeah. And what you always did was you always had music, I think, in your mind. Yeah.
Well, it's true. Well, it's interesting to say that because that's why I got back into music, because you do become, when you do the road and do all this stuff, after you become an angry, and we call it the angry roadie.
You can be jaded, yeah.
Oh my God! And you've met them. I know you have.
Oh, 100%.
And it's just they're just miserable, and they hate their job, and they hate music, and it's like, really, if you think about it, as far as jobs go, it's pretty cool.
You're getting paid to travel for, but
yeah, and they're So I made a conscious effort to when I started finding myself doing that. I went, I gotta go back and rediscover why I even got into this business. Okay. You know what I mean? Just like right from the beginning. So I started looking what records did I buy? What made me? Because when I was a kid in the 70s, all I did was go and see concerts. I mean, they were $5, $6, $7 a piece. Yeah. So, I'd do my lawn, my little cut some lawns, and I'd go to the Ticketron or whatever place. Goes, who's coming to town? Because it's mostly general admission. Yeah. So I'd be like, I got $45. Who's coming to town? And they go, hey, Jean-Luc Ponty. Oh, Emerson Lake and Palmer. Oh, Chick Corea. I'll take one of each. You're like, and that's what I did.
Which was your first one?
Very, very first was John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, 1972.
Wow.
And, it was because my best friends, his older brothers were into him. So it was being cool.
Yeah, you had to fit in. But you had to want to be that.
Yeah, but it was great. I mean, he was top of his game, big band.
Is that why you kind of got into, so you'd cut the grass, go to the show, and then eventually you said you worked at a record store?
Yes, I finally got in. Well, I practically lived at record stores, so I finally ended up working at one and ended up managing it for a while.
Have you ever seen the movie Empire Records?
No, I have not seen that one.
Okay.
But High Fidelity?
That
was my life.
Okay, well, so I guess my generation's was Empire Records.
Okay, yeah.
And
I got it.
But it was all CDs, though, in there.
Oh,
They had moved on.
Yeah.
Cassettes,
I remember when CDs came out.
I was working there. I was a tape CD kid. There you go. I was younger, but I do remember it pretty well. Yeah. But that was my jam. I was like, oh, I want to work in a record store. It looks fun. They're having they're laughing. But now, now you can't find a record store to save your life.
Yeah,
they're getting smaller.
Yeah, they're out there. They're just like used records. Yeah, the price is going way up.
And I always loved that about you, because one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is your knowledge of music to me. Yeah. You love music. Yeah. You were one of those guys
that's
really...
why I had to go back and rethink that. Why am I doing this? I don't want to be the angry guy.
No.
Love of music.
Love of music. And you've worked for, like you said, some... let's just be real. We've worked for average people. We've worked for awesome people, and everything in between. Yep. But if you're putting yourself out there, I'm just gonna say any musician that's willing to put themselves out there, good on them. Yeah. Can't always say they're gonna have the biggest audience, but one thing that you always would show me is new music. Yeah. And I'd never heard of the first concert you went to. I've never heard of that guy.
Yeah. It's the British blues. Well, you've heard of Eric Clapton.
I've heard of Eric Clapton.
Well, he was in John Mayall's band. John Mayall was really good at discovering, guitar players. Mick Taylor that ended up going to the Rolling Stones. Eric Clapton was in his band. Fleetwood, what's the guy that... I can't remember
Buckingham?
his name. No. This is Peter Green. Oh, okay. Who was another amazing in British. They all went through John Mayall's band in the 60s. So he was this, guy that probably didn't pay him because he was blues, much. But
you got a chance to be in his band.
Yeah, he discovered that's like 3 huge names in the British.
Eric Clapton. I think he did something with him.
Yeah,
with his career.
Yeah. Mick Taylor joined the Rolling Stones. Peter Green went on to form Fleetwood Mac.
That's amazing.
That was his band, the original. Fleetwood
the
Mac.
original. Yeah, because they went through a few players.
Yep, they were a blues band at first. So he was. The John Mayall. It's iconic British blues.
Yeah, I learned something today.
There you go. But my second concert, that was the one. It was Deep Purple.
Ooh.
During the Smoke on the Water. The band.
The band.
That probably sealed the deal for me playing music forever. Being one involved in it.
Yeah.
ZZ Top was the opening act. Never heard of them. Didn't even know who they were. They impressed me enough to go out and buy the record the next day, Tres Hombres. But yeah, Richie Blackmore, this is, you're 13, 14 years old, I can't remember,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting up there and this Richie, I don't know if anybody knows the Deep Purple, the Richie Blackmore thing, but he's this just crazy amazing guitar player. He was a studio guy in the 60s and all that. He comes out in full black silk suit with white platform, shoes, like with heels, like 3,
Yeah.
with a top hat.
Oh,
he plays a white Stratocaster through a 200-watt Marshall. That's it. That's his rig the whole night. None of these pedals.
Nothing.
It's like, and it's just blazing, just screaming. And so, as a kid, you're like, oh,
this is amazing.
Oh, my God. And then there's one part in the show, he's playing and he throws the guitar way up in the air and catches it and then starts playing again, throws it really high. And there's a cable on it. This is no wireless stuff,
Yeah.
So he catches it again, and he's, shredding, Then he throws it up the third time, and I can still remember this, and he steps back and the guitar just, hits the deck, hits the stage, and it's louder than,
Yeah.
Bam.
Everything.
Puts it on the ground. He's taking those white, platform, and he's his feet across the guitar, just, and you're like, oh my God, I'm in.
Yes, 100%.
And you're,
the whole crowd's going wild.
Oh
You're
God.
like,
I'm in.
Eyes.
Whatever this is, I'm in.
That's a great moment in rock and roll history. And did he do it every night though, or did you just happen to be lucky?
I think he did it. He was great.
He was pretty good at it.
Back in those days, you can probably YouTube. Hey kids, you can use that YouTube thing.
You can use
probably
that.
find some Richie Blackmore.
You can use that YouTube thing.
Yeah.
See, but these are those moments though that I think really make people like want to be in music because of things like that. You see it and it is rock and roll.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, this is wild.
Yeah.
And back then, there wasn't things like YouTube. There wasn't things that you could just get online and look and then be like, oh, I saw it, and then move on.
Right.
You waited. Like, you would hear the story from a friend. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you got to see this.
Dude, I was at freaking Deep Purple the other night, and he was smashing the guitar into the ground, and people don't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, no, who would smash their guitar into the ground? You're like, this guy did. And I think that's freaking amazing that you got a chance to see that as a kid and get you...
Oh, yeah, it was just, it was like I said, I still remember it to this day. But yeah, that's how, so that's why I try to, bring it to, yes, it's a job and it's cool. Like you said, you get to travel.
You get to do a lot of cool stuff.
Especially,
eat free food.
Yeah. Usually it's pretty good. And, if you go on a long tour, you have plenty of days off to explore cities that you might never, want to go to. It's funny, the number one question I get asked when people say, when they find out your tour, I try to explain what I do and finally just go, well, I'm a roadie. Oh, yeah, okay, you're a roadie. It's like,
it's
try to, and then the number one thing I get to is like, what's your favorite city?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite cities is Boise, Idaho.
That's a great city. You know what I tell people? Des Moines, Iowa.
Really? That's what I like Boise because they have one slice of pizza that I really enjoy, and I always kind of like their night scene. But I can't say that Des Moines, Iowa is mine, but
there's a reason.
But why there?
See, because remember, I traveled with my bike. I started bringing the bike out. Getting rid of the bug. Yeah, I know.
That little guy was having a little bit of fun up there.
That guy's like taking over our. Hey, bug. You're taking.
I liked
shot. You're taking their shot. What are you hogging the whole thing? This is our show. This is Phil's show. This is not your show, Bug.
Bug. You got to get your own show, man.
Yeah, get your own show, dude.
There was a small bug that kept crawling across the lens, but I can only imagine that it's translating to the most giant thing in the world. So
it's like the ant-eat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a horror movie. Yes. Like someone's gonna watch this and be like, I think we're getting taken over by aliens. So you did travel with your bike though, and so you'd get out and
and Des Moines, Iowa has about 200 miles of bike trails.
Wow.
And various, you can not just city, multi-use, but like single track where you can go right in the city. You can go in the woods. I mean, it's a great day off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you got to clear your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to sit in the hotel bar getting, spending,
It's easy to do that.
And so I would ride my bike, and it's got amazing bike trails. It can spend the day.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, you were picking up records on your last one too, right? You would ride your bike, find a record store.
Yep.
So you've just been collecting records.
Yes. I started recollecting, like I said, consciously instead of being that,
So maybe in 2000, I must say this was 2016.
Yeah, maybe. I started really going back to, discovering why. Like all those records used to have and listen, like the Deep Purple thing, that I hadn't listened to, and putting it on, going like, oh yeah, this is why I liked that back then.
Or finding, like seeing one that you haven't seen in probably 20 years or maybe even longer.
In another band, another group that you might never heard, And so it's like rediscovering that.
Well, I bet something's really cool about that in a different way, because record collecting isn't like CD collecting or tape collecting, because I could see it as like you walk into your grandparents' house or your parents' house, or there's a memory that's playing from a record. Like you play 45s, you play like all different types of records on your show, and so I can only imagine sometimes you stumble across stuff that doesn't just excite your memory; it takes you back, way. So I think that's the cool thing about records, and they're different.
Yeah,
there's something to. I don't know.
It's like holding them in your hand as It's like almost like you get to participate. In it a little bit more.
You got to put the needle down in the right spot. You can't just
clean it all.
Yeah, there is no repeat.
Yeah.
Or is there a repeat? No, there isn't.
Not really. You can pick the needle up and put it back.
Yeah, but you have to participate.
You have to participate.
So when you're 2016, you're rediscovering your love of music.
Yeah.
You're having all this fun riding your bike.
Yep.
You're actually doing what I think a lot of people want to do on tour, but a lot of people just end up doing the
hotel bar.
Yeah. Tell you the same story.
Yeah. Bitching about complaining about the job, or, talking about the gig,
Yeah, all the things that don't make touring fun.
No.
When you were doing this, was the radio show in the back of your mind?
No, being on the bus, because we had to pass the wire.
I was just about to get to the story, but I wasn't sure if the radio had always been one of those kind of dreams to have, because you have a radio voice, so I wasn't sure if you
no, it was basically because I was always starting the DJ every tour, and including the ones we did. We had some good times doing the pass the wire. Playing for Eek, playing his favorite songs.
I was just telling Berkeley, one of the funnest parts of like us going back and forth through the bus with music was I would end up playing everything that was through the roof loud, hot, it was energetic, and then it'd be like Castle or your turn, and Castle would take it to like Frank Zappa, like left field.
The something hole surfers.
And then you would have like this other kind of entire side, and then Izzy would have like another complete side. And I could always see Eek's face. You'd always just be like, okay, let's get back to let's get the chord back to Phil, because I want to hear the outfield.
or Billy
Motley
Squire.
Motley Crue, Billy Squire.
Well, that was cool about it. You could hear everything from James Brown, Frank Zappa to Iron Maiden.
Oh, but you would play some of the like stuff that I had never ever heard of, and it was cool though.
Yeah.
Like some nights, obviously, I was too drunk to. All I wanted to listen to was Thin Lizzy at 106 decibels on a bus with like tight quarters and everyone's drunk.
Going down the road at 75 miles an hour.
But it was a fun game though. That really would like not only encourage just laughter and fun times, but it would bring us all together because each person brought a different style.
And you didn't have to sit there and complain about the gig or complain about the hands you had for that day.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just
our bus was pretty fun.
It was fun. We had
I'd walk on and I always knew if it was going to be a little bit rowdier every night if I could hear the music before I got to the front door.
Especially with Izzy had it at Rush, Rush at 110 decibels and the room, place the size of your closet,
It is, or the little front lounge closet.
Yeah. Oh man. But it really did. I used to call it the sound palette or cleanse the sound palette. Turn, like you said, Thin Lizzy up and just rage it out instead of, a couple times we were raging. I think we were in the front lounge was like,
couple elbows being thrown. Well, that was the thing too, is even on like school nights, we'd find ourselves like, all right, I'm just going to have one and play a little music. But the minute you start playing music, it doesn't stop. Right. It's really like I was watching your episode or listening to your episode 25.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it was like a 2-hour journey.
I think it played all the 45s or something.
It was. It was your 45-hour and some change.
Yeah.
But the thing that's really cool about your show is that you have, you put on some older stuff, but it's a pretty good eclectic mix of.
So try to do, and like you said, I'm trying to bring music that people may not have ever heard. Yeah. Could go, I really like this. Mm-hmm. That's the thing, and then try to mix it up. I mean, I think there was one show I had, Graham Parker, then it went into Black Sabbath. Yeah. And people mentioned that, like, this one eye doctor friend of mine, they play it over their, for the inside the optometrist or wherever they sell their sunglasses and glasses.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he said he was in back, and all of a sudden he hears Black Sabbath, and he goes, "Man, I had that when I was a kid. I had the posters on my wall, and stuff like." And it's like, so you kind of pick it up, That's what I'm trying to do. Is like you don't know what's coming next. It could be an R&B, jazzy thing to a heavy, metal to a rock, or
I've really enjoyed it. Well, I haven't been able to listen to every single one for.
Here's the Top Jimmy Radio Hour.
Yeah. Okay. So now, all right, let's get into the show. No. I want to get into this because the intro is classic. Yeah. Is that all you?
Yeah, it's all me.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I listened to it. I had to like put it on and specifically listen to it because I was like, either he got someone or he did this, and it's really good.
Yeah, I turned the manipulated the tempo and all the pitch and all that stuff.
Had some fun.
Yep. Put on your face and join the race. Get to know and enjoy the show.
I love
it. Here's your host, Top Jimmy.
Jimmy.
But it's like when that came, it's funny that name when you asked how I started getting into it.
Yeah.
The bus past the wire.
Okay.
And I think it was I was on the Keith Urban tour, and the same thing. We're doing that, and the one guy goes, "Man, you should do a radio show." It's like that's when it started the spark. But that was way back. But when COVID hit and we weren't going, I'm like, well, let me try this. Maybe we can start putting it together. So that's how that came about.
So the inception was on the Keith Urban tour, but COVID really brought out some interesting stuff. Like,
sure did.
It made people try new things. I mean, I'm sure that though you wanted to potentially do something like this, you get busy on the road. You know, like
when you come home, it's like, the last thing you want to do is,
do you really want to do more audio? Do you really want to plug in more cables? Do you really, of course. Yeah, there's nothing more. When I would get off the road, I wanted to eat, sit on the couch and like binge watch TV, go for walks maybe. But I really
decompress.
Yeah, I didn't want to do anything audio. So like when the pandemic hit, I was okay.
Yeah. Hey, maybe there's all these things I can
Let's try something different.
Right.
Now, when you do your show, you record off the record player directly, or do you have like a special like A to D or?
Yeah, when I first
analog to digital, I should say.
When I first did, I just used the iTunes, because I have an iPod, but it has, I think, 23,000 songs on it, that's the format, so I can play past the wire.
Yeah.
Before, I got the Spotify and the other things, I actually just still collected music. But anyway, so beginning, that's what I was just pulling off of that.
Okay.
Which is mainly from CDs or whatever you collect. And then I figured out I have a USB out turntable, and now I can go directly into the format. So, you got some of them a little too much pops and crackles, but you can hear them sometimes, and it's not too bad. We'll just keep them in there.
I kind of dig it, though.
Yeah, I mean,
it adds that texture, I think, to, it's like there's really clean albums, and then there's stuff that was recorded many, many, many moons ago that they didn't have all the bells and whistles to fix them up and cut all the...
It was fun going through the 45s.
Yeah.
Because, how often do you just sit there and go through all, anybody collects them, like you go through them all and go, oh, this, and like, oh, and I was like, I got some pretty interesting 45s here. Let's put them on the show, because there was some pretty deep, some pretty wacky stuff, like the Frank Zappa. Oh. I Don't Want to Get Drafted. That was like the only way, I think that was, at the time, that's the only way you could buy that song.
Really?
When it came out. It's like, that's it, the single.
Crazy.
There was no YouTubes and nobody's...
for sure.
None of that. So the only way you could hear that song is buying the 45.
And, well, you're bringing a cool topic up because there's a lot of people that listen to digital stuff. Yeah. So they stumble upon your radio show, and here's Frank Zappa playing a song.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How do who knows if that's even on iTunes or anything like that right now?
Who knows,
Maybe someone, or maybe his team has transferred it, but that's a really cool thing because the only way you used to be able to get it was through buying the actual 45.
Yeah. Well, we used to do that, like the record store, high fidelity. I told you, it's my life. I actually lived above the record store for a while.
Really?
And we
John Cusack, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, remember that scene where they're like, I'm going to sell this record. There's a record. I don't know if you remember but we used to do that.
Okay.
Like I probably sold more Roxy Music Avalon that way. Because if I had a store full of people, I go, watch this. We're going to sell some Roxy Music, today. And I put it on. Next thing you know, it's just like the movie. People are like, who is this?
Who is this?
Yeah. And then for a while, we had a Saturday morning, like coffee clutch vinyl nuts, and all of us would show up. We'd all hang out in the coffee and play music for each other and talk about music.
That's awesome.
And then it was like every Saturday, you come in and that's how you start, kicks your Saturday off, So when I walk in the movie and the attitudes and, I just go, oh my God, that was my life,
How many years was that your life?
Most of the 80s.
Okay.
Off and on, but it gave me the freedom, because you're just managing a store. So to play music or do sound, if I had to travel, you get somebody to cover your shift, And then I quit and I stopped doing that when I played music full time. But yeah, it was, because you're in, and plus you didn't open till 11 noon. You know what I mean?
Such a cool life. That's why I wanted to work at a record
store. I was upstairs. So you go out, do sound, or you play the night before. You get home at 2 or 3, and plus you're upstairs at a record store. You're the cool guy in the neighborhood. So,
of course, everyone wants to come over and hang till 3 or 4 now.
Right? So let's come. After the gig, you come over. Your neighbor is the place I work downstairs.
Yeah.
I think we can play music loud.
You guys want to hear this new album that just came out that no one else has?
You're right. So, it was living the dream, I guess, to say, for a while.
Do you? I'm sure listening and bringing those records up in your show and stuff, I'm sure sparks that excitement again, which is exactly what you're talking about.
I get to share my love, and like you said, something that you never heard before.
Yeah,
like that's the challenge. Is like. Do you like it? Yeah, I like it. Have you ever heard it? No, I never have. But it exists.
It does.
It's there in a format, so sharing what you love,
What's cool about what you're doing too is it gives people the ability to fast forward, but unlike a CD, you can't skip the whole song. So certain songs though, like maybe a song doesn't take off right away, but you hit like 30-second or you hit the 15, forward every once in a while, and you're like, all of a sudden you get to something that's a little more exciting. You're like, wait, hold on. And you back it up a little bit. Yeah. So it really kind of gives the listener the ability to go forward, but they still have to kind of listen to these songs and potentially spark something interesting.
Right. A lot of people just put on when they work or at work and stuff like that, or driving. So, that's cool. And so it's just getting to share. The bottom line is, how do you make money off of it? How do you make income? I mean, people do. On the format I use is Mixcloud out of London. Yeah. There are people who do have subscriptions. Yeah. Stuff, but I'm like not at that point,
There's I could give you some things that I've been told. It's not hard, but it definitely is a one more step in the process, because you really have to start putting yourself out there more, and you really have to start creating. I think the whole idea is to get people on other platforms to come to your platform.
Gotcha.
It's not really that and two, I think a lot of people that utilize podcasts and stuff like that, people make it seem like they're all the Joe Rogans of the world making millions and billions of dollars. It is still a hobby sport for a lot of people, but there is a way. There is many avenues, and I think sponsorships are like the biggest way. A lot of people think the subscription thing is easy, but you really have to give people that extra little, but
T-shirt. Hey, sign up for the subscription and I'll send you a T-shirt.
That is definitely Jim's radio hour.
It could be a thing, it could be a thing. So you just don't get just the radio, you get
Jimmy's hour and the T-shirt. Yeah. You'd have to come up with you'd have to find like your favorite album cover and like superimpose your face on it or something, good, and the nice part is even though like you're doing something that is very vintage in a way and bringing that old flavor, mixing it with these new ideas, like having a print-on-demand T-shirt. To whatever. Maybe you make $15 a month off of it, but that pays for that subscription. And that's where I think technology is really cool, is that you can vibe with these old things and reintroduce them, because everything goes. There's some sort of cycle in the world.
Right.
This music is popular again. Elvis will become popular again.
Right.
The Beach Boys will become popular again.
I was checking out at Kroger yesterday, and I look over, I think Time Magazine had a, special on the Beatles. Yeah. And I looked at my wife and said, they're still putting out magazines about the Beatles. Yeah. I mean, still.
That's wild.
Obviously, right? They think that they can make money. Why would a magazine put out a print of these days of a band,
Well, just think, you've had what, 3 daughters or 2 daughters?
3 daughters.
3 daughters, right? I guarantee you, at one point in each one of their lives, they've worn a Led Zeppelin shirt, or
Rolling Stones,
or Rolling Stones.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So the trend is there. It will like inevitably the cycle of music will hit someone's ear.
Well, it's still like, why do people still? How did Rolling Stones sell out stadiums?
You were just on their tour.
Yeah, last fall I was with the opening act.
Yes,
and we did 7 of the 12 shows in America.
That's and it's not like they're selling half a stadium or.
Oh no, and the tickets are through the roof.
It's a great show though.
My funniest story about the Rolling Stones, the first time I saw them was in 1978.
Wow.
And the tickets were $12.50, and I was angry. Plus, you had to send in a self-addressed stamped envelope to get the tickets.
What?
And add $1 to it. So I took my girlfriend, at the time, so that's $25 plus the $1 service charge, $27, I think it was. And I'm like, I don't think I'd ever paid more than $7.50 for a show.
This better be the best show of my life.
We're talking. I mean, I saw Bruce Springsteen. So I'm like, man, I can't believe it. $12.50. Oh man, who do these guys think they are? The opening act?
Yeah.
Van Halen.
No way.
And the Doobie Brothers.
Oh my gosh.
Hated Van Halen. Sorry. at the time.
I
never didn't know who they were, no idea.
Could take it.
And I'm like, who is this guy that thinks he's Jim Dandy from Black Oak, Arkansas, jumping around in the white suit with the flowing blonde hair, and they're playing like
doing leg kicks.
Yeah, doing leg kicks, and they're writing average Led Zeppelin songs.
I love it.
That was my attitude. That was my attitude at the time, and it was like, a year later, they're the biggest band in the world,
You're like, okay, I'm kind of warming up to them.
I get it. Yeah. But when you're in it was at the Superdome in New Orleans, and, when you're in there with 60, 70,000 people, and, you're trying to, it probably didn't sound that good, and they look like,
little stick figures down there.
And the Doobie Brothers, though, were amazing that day.
That's awesome.
They were like unbelievable. The Stones were like, New Orleans, the Stones. I remember Keith one time started the wrong song.
Oh my God.
It was great. It was like, it starts at the band, and the Stones don't. They're they're professional.
Uh-huh.
They don't. It's on.
Yep.
Charlie Watts would start the song, and
it was good.
It was, you're not gonna until the song's over. And so I remember, kids kind of see Keith kind of like look around, like stop playing, kind of look around and listen and go, oh, okay, and then get
this song,
yeah,
not Jumping Jack Flash,
because they still use wedges.
Yeah, well, there's
like 100 and something of them.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
it is a setup to say the least.
And all Crown. I was there. I
Crown
saw it.
amps. Yeah,
I saw it.
Yeah, they are. Dave Natel, who's the front of house guy, he is a original from the sound company that I came from. And he has always been that analog guy that uses it from input all the way through. I think I could be wrong if there's a few little A to Ds here and there, but I want to say that he builds it to where it is as analog as
wild.
Yeah.
If people don't know it, Crown DC 300A, that was like the amp in like 1972.
Yeah.
I mean, really was.
Yeah.
They were expensive back then. I remember when I had my little PA company, we had, PVCS 800s for the low end.
Yeah,
and, QSC amps for the others, and that's what we had. But to own a Crown would have been like, ooh. And he got...
You swimming in gold over there?
Yeah. They have like about 150. They're all under the stage.
Yeah.
I saw them. It's like, and I look like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think there's probably like a truck just for amplifiers.
Because they did weigh. They weighed a ton.
And they do weigh a ton.
Yeah.
They're not light. Yeah, you don't want to be changing that mid-show. See if spares.
Right. But that's
I saw them on the Voodoo Lounge tour.
Oh, I saw that tour. It was a good show.
And that was, like you said, there's certain concerts that you can see that excite you. And that was definitely one of the ones as a kid that I saw that made me want to be on stage. I didn't know what I wanted to do on stage, but I wanted to be there.
Whatever that is, I want part of that.
Whatever that long-haired guy doing over there.
Yeah, I want in.
But music can be, and I'm not a giant music per se buff, but I get it. Like I'm not like you said, Van Halen didn't spark your interest right away. The Beatles have never been my interest, but I get it. There's something deep inside that when they hit those chords and hey, whatever, Jude comes. Well, that's Paul McCartney, right?
Yeah, no, the Beatles. It's a song, Okay.
But you know what I mean. Like you hear those things, and you're like, I get this. I really understand it. And recently, I was able to go to Starstruck Studios.
Okay.
And they have the new Dolby Atmos there. And what they're doing is they're taking old songs that I think it was Miles Davis.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't do it at this studio, but they were telling me that the other Dolby Atmos at Capitol Records in L.A.
Okay.
They took his 3 tracks, and then they amplified it in the room, and they put different mics in different spots to recreate different textures and layers and all this stuff, and then they dumped it into this digital surround sound.
Oh, I've heard that thing. Is that the one that circles around?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
And they say it's one of the classiest things that's ever been remixed that way because they didn't change Miles Davis. They just made it bigger.
Wow.
And so I think what you have is exactly what people are wanting. They want old stuff maybe digitize so they don't have to carry around a record player.
Right, yeah, right.
It's kind of hard to get on the the T in Boston and try to.
We're going down the road, here. The needle's jumping.
Yeah, you definitely can't drive down any Nashville road with a record player.
No. What's funny that the old like high end cars back in the 50s, early 60s had you could get a record player in them. Wow. And I always look at them going like, surely they weren't playing them while they're going down the road.
That they had to be parked at the park. Yeah. The suspension was clearly not up to par then either. But
no.
I think what you have though is exactly that though. It's that people want to hear new things because there is, in my opinion, there's music out now, but I don't think it's as great at times. Yeah. Because a lot of it does sound the same. And when you listen back, sure, a lot of that sounds kind of similar, but people are doing radically different things because I think they were trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, yeah, you had to figure it out. I mean, it wasn't given to you. You couldn't go on the computer and put it together. You really had to be artist. You had to be an artist.
Yeah.
And that's why all the bands at the time kind of sounded different from each other, So yeah, you had to be creative. Like you said, the Beatles. Yes, the music, but really, their recording, what they did with recording was crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Like when John Lennon, they do guitars, they do 2 tracks, and they actually had tape. They had a 4-track. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's was recorded on a 4 tracks.
Wild.
I mean, there's some now are 108. Track,
who knows
what they did, but how they did it, like when they do guitars, they would actually slow one of the actual tape machines down just a little bit to give it that fat guitar sound. I mean, the things that they were doing, just trying to be creative, was just
isn't that wild?
Yeah. So you had to be an art. You had to be an artist and a creative. It wasn't like, you can buy samples or you can do this and put it together, which
it's creative in its own in its own way, but it's not
right. It's not
think of the person who said, "I'm going to slow down the tape machine." Right. That's wild.
Watch this,
like that is that is a wild thing. Or like when they would push on the tape machine to give it like effect.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kind of weird. Les Paul was one of the first, in the 50s, experimenting with the tape, stuff. But I'm not taking away that you still have to be creative and an artist today. The music and hip hop, it's not
for sure.
But I'm just saying back then for rock and roll, that was.
I look at it this way, the DJs of the world, they're still clipping the stuff and piecing it and creating art.
Yeah.
But I get what you mean when you say taking an instrument and really pulling back on the strings and creating this wild sound is way different than going through a library of sounds and then just cutting and pasting it.
Right.
2 different completely art styles. Like there's Picasso and then there's people who draw stick figures on walls and get paid millions of dollars. Yeah, and so
exactly.
You can look at it as just art in general. But I will say though that listening to your stuff has re-excited me with some older stuff that I never thought that I would even be.
Well, I've succeeded.
Well, I'm hoping that like the one thing that I can give you is a bigger audience, hopefully, that would
love that. Because that's why you do it.
You do it that way.
You're not making any money, so the more people that
the one thing that is awesome for you is that the one thing that you can give people right now is not a lot of commercials either.
Yeah, no.
And that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, you listen to a radio station, you get like 2 songs, and then you have 5-10 minutes of commercials, and then you get 2 more songs, and then they play the same song twice in the same hour.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
At least with what you're doing, you're giving a very like layered, different experience.
Plus, I'm trying to give information or interesting facts behind the recording or the artist.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like. I'll play the original, what was it, Soft Cell, the song that was actually really recorded in the 60s, and then the girl, what's the God, I can't even think of her name off the top of my head. I will. Ended up in Mark Bolan's band, and blah, blah, it's like, here's the correlation. Sometimes I find the correlation that I didn't know it existed when I put it on. I go, that's probably the most fun I'm having is the history of them, each one, because I try to get a little history of each song, a little interesting fact. And sometimes I'll go, oh, I didn't know that, and put put the correlation from song to song, or who wrote it and this person. So that's what's kind of been fun for me.
Nice.
Because I have the music and I've heard it, but I didn't know sometimes the background.
Okay. Yeah, you're almost like a small documentary in a way.
In a way. So I try to keep it entertaining to a point,
For sure. When you do your playlist, do you spend about a week, 2 weeks? What's your typical turnaround for a show?
It depends. I'll try to get like a theme, and then I have to pick a bunch of songs. Then you kind of weed them out, and then you kind of figure out how they go to, like you said, I can start off with the Neville Brothers song and end up with a
Black
Deep Purple song or Black, something like, but how it works in between, or, so
the correlation is definitely cool.
So it takes a while to kind of listen to the list, how does this flow? Does it not flow? And take it from there. So sometimes I'll have ideas, and sometimes I'll just, I love this song, and I'll save it in a file.
Perfect.
When I do the records right off the record, I have to, go through all the albums, look at the songs, and then, put them down, record them, and then go back and listen and kind of fit it all. So, it's curating was what I call it.
I love it.
But
how many albums do you have?
I don't know. Probably about 2,000 or 3,000, something like that.
That's amazing. Do you have a nice room that you go into, or?
My wife got these shelves she found on the when the Facebook selling. It's like a bookshelf, and that's in the main room, and then upstairs I have another one I built. It's like a bin, like a record bin thing you can go through. I keep all my soundtracks. I have an extensive James Bond collection. For a while, I went through this period of collecting all detective theme song albums, and they're cool because it was a trend. When the first James Bond movie came out, and then the music, which is and there's a whole industry. I mean, all these studio musicians and all these different arrangers would put out. I mean, even Count Basie has a James Bond theme album.
That's amazing.
So jazz themes. There's all these, and they're good.
What a cool genre.
Yeah, they're and a lot of them are really good. Because they were studio musicians. Yeah. So the records are. Billy Strange, he's a guitar player. He has some, detective. And Billy Strange, he's the guy that did, Boots Are Made for Walking. He's the guy, I mean, that's these stories I try to tell on the show too, so it correlates, you're like, oh, that's the guy,
You're like, I always wondered.
Yeah, pretty cool. So,
now, when you're up there, and does it bring back the memory of the looking through the record bins, sorting them out? You kind of go up there, you get your high fidelity fix every once in a while.
Oh yeah, we were insane because when we had the records, we were obsessed. So when you went into say Pink Floyd, and you saw every record, we would try to have every record. Not just the latest, and we'd put them in chronological order. If you looked at it, it'd be like Saucer Full of Secrets, Piper, The Gates of Dawn, So as you looked at the record, the back one was the first one they put out.
Wow.
And we were crazy about that.
You're a good manager.
That was our thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny when people want to argue with me about what record came out first. And I've had arguments. Oh no, this came out. I'm like, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. Nope. Nope. Because I probably filed that 50 times. It's like once you sell the record, you restock it. You got to put it back in a chronological order.
Don't let me catch you putting that out of order over there.
So that was what's cool. We were. That's how vinyl freaks, vinyl junkies we were.
Vinyl junkies.
It had to be in chronological order.
That's pretty awesome, man. Those are the arguments you want to be in life. That's the fun one. You're like,
I think I think Pink Floyd was one. The guy was getting into it with me. I mean, really getting into it with me. And I'm like, nope. This, Dark Side of the Moon came out, and then Wish You Were, then Animals, then then it was like The Wall. And he's like, no. And I'm like, here's your phone. Ask to Google. Suddenly he's like, oh yeah, 72.
Look at that.
He's like, oh yeah, you're right.
Oops.
Like, dude, that was my life.
You lived it. So do you have a favorite? Okay, do you have a favorite record that sits out that you like as a go-to?
Not anymore. You know, probably some of my John Lennon, you know, records. You know, the John Lennon Ono, probably have that. But yeah, not, you know, David Bowie. I'm, you know, David Bowie fan, so
he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's very.
He did some cool stuff.
Talk about an artist, creative, right till he passed away.
Did he do the Labyrinth soundtrack?
I think so.
Wow.
I don't have that, but I'm pretty sure he did.
He just seemed the movie's a little out there, so I figured
yeah.
he would have something to do with it.
Right.
He was a good. I've always enjoyed David Bowie.
He's an artist.
Wild.
True artist.
Actually, I just saw a clip of him. So we watched the Anthony Bourdain documentary on.
Good.
It was on HBO or Mag or whatever it was. Do you remember the scene with David Bowie in there that they played? It's a small clip. I think he's in like an army.
Yeah.
Or he's like, I'm coming back home one day, son. But they were talking about his travel or whatever. But David Bowie he did it all. He was an actor.
Yeah. And also I heard he's a
hairstylist.
Pretty personable guy. I mean, you know, his friend, you know, I mean, he was funny, they said. You know, he's like, he was carrying, he'd write people notes, you know, and he'd call them. You know, Ricky Gervais, just how do you say, you know, the comedian, the British comedian, the original Office. You can YouTube this one. It's a great thing. I guess they were friends. Oh. And what happened was, I think David Bowie, when The Office was out, David Bowie like emailed him or got hold of him and said, I really loved your show. And, you know, Ricky Gervais was like, David Bowie's contacted me about my, you know. So they became friends.
That's cool.
But there's this great scene on YouTube where Ricky's got some honor or something, award, and they go to this restaurant and David Bowie's there. Oh. And David Bowie starts like this song and putting Ricky down. I mean, it's like the little fat man, you know, it's like, and it's a great scene.
Like a little roast.
Totally straight, you know, faced. But it's really funny when Ricky's like, really? Yeah, David, but you know,
David effing Bowie is making fun of me right now.
And it's just, and it's probably like a small restaurant with like maybe 20 people.
Classic.
You know, it's like, it's really funny.
I'm going to have to look that up. That's
good. It's
good.
Pretty funny.
All right, so you brought...
Yes.
I love... All right, we're going to move to the prop you brought.
Oh, yeah.
But I do have to say this. Good on you for doing something different with music. Because and I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited to hopefully get you a couple more listeners.
Yeah.
But I'm also excited just to check out your show. It's fun. So, you know... Moving on to the prop, though, you brought a record, though, for us. But this isn't just any record. Right. This is part of your favorite movie?
Yes. Well, I remember, like, one of the questions that might pop up is, like, what's your favorite movie and all that. And so Little Big Man is my favorite all-time movie.
Okay.
I can just, you know, watch it all the time. Dustin Hoffman, I think he was, like, 20 years old or something when he made, you know, way early in his career. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. I just happen to have the Little Big Man record. So I
wish I would have had a record player, though, so we could play this.
Well, it's funny because John Hammond, it's a kind of a bluesy slide, you know, slide guitar kind of stuff on it. And the music's really cool. John Hammond is the son. John Hammond Jr., I think his father discovered like Bob Dylan.
Wow.
I mean, this is this guy. You know, I mean, he's behind the scenes in New York scenes. He was behind a lot of cool music being made. I think some of the jazz stuff but he's the guy that really brought Dylan in the studio.
That's
Little Big Man. Chief Dan George is so great in this movie. I can still to this day watch it and almost tears. It's funny, it's sad, it's blah blah blah. So I bought it. I was like, oh, this is great. The music was amazing, but this record is mostly all dialogue. It's the dialogue from the movie.
The movie,
yeah. Most of the whole entire record is dialogue, and I started thinking, well, why would I want to listen to the dialogue? I can get it on DVD, VHS, and started realizing, wait a minute, when this record was made, there was no VHS.
Yeah.
There was no, you couldn't buy the movie. The only way you could see it was either at the theater when it ran, or hopefully run on one of the 3 major channels that existed in the 60s.
And you really had, that was a gamble at that point there.
Right, yeah, you're just like...
So if you wanted to listen to some of your favorite lines...
You had to buy a record.
Oh my gosh, that is pretty cool.
I was all excited about getting the music, and then found out it's mostly dialogue.
That is too clever.
Which is great dialogue, but it's...
But back in the day, that's a marketing genius right there.
Yeah, because you couldn't buy the movie.
Because you couldn't buy the movie.
So, but you could listen to the dialogue, which is amazing.
Do you ever just throw that on and just let it play in the background?
Sometimes, yeah. Not as much.
I've never seen that movie, but I might have to check it out now.
You have to watch it from beginning to end. The book is really great, too. You really have to watch it from beginning to end, because if you want to learn anything about the expansion, the Native American, the white, because it ends up with Custer's last stand.
Oh, okay.
So, but what happens is this Jack Crabb, he's the oldest living person that was at Little Bighorn, or an Indian fighter. Mm-hmm. So he's being interviewed by a guy. Supposedly this guy's like 100 and something years old. It's I don't know, it's 19 early 19. So he's being interviewed by a newspaper man. So the guy goes, he starts telling this, interviewer, oh yeah, I was at Little Bighorn. Guy's like, oh, and he's like, oh, I was here. And he goes, no, and then they tell the story through the movie.
Okay.
So what happens is they're basically, they're going west, young man, and their wagon train gets waylaid by some Indians, and so he goes back and forth between the tribes and the white world. Okay. So it's kind of really cool to see how they both kind of lived. How if you read it, you can really get the sense of the history of
very cool.
And Chief Jan George is amazing in it.
Jan George.
The movie was so impressed. The tribe that he gets involved with, they call them the human beings. It translates to human beings.
Yeah.
That's their tribe.
That's funny.
But you just got to watch it. But anyway, it affected me so much that I wanted to name my first child HB.
HB? Because of the human being.
I thought that'd be great. See, all our kids, we never knew the sex until they were born.
Okay.
Yeah, all 3.
So you had that in the...
I didn't know what, as a boy or girl, but I always thought...
HB?
HB Whitfield. It's like...
It's like a writer's name.
Kind of a cool name, and then they could, as they grow, they can fill in, they can call it whatever they want. But the name would have been human being.
Human being. That's pretty good.
And I thought...
It's clever. It would have gone off perfectly because you do enjoy the movie. But so there would have been a little bit of that in there. It would have
been perfectly if my wife didn't think I was out of my mind. Actually, I would have done it. But,
Don't worry, I have a name that I want to use, but I feel like everybody around me is like, that's
Remember when they're gonna be 30 and 40 at some point.
They're gonna have to, be called that in a professional light one day. It's like, okay, fine, you.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. Did you see the movie in the movie theaters though?
I don't remember if I did or not.
Stumbled upon it at one time.
I don't know how it.
I thought you were going to say Major League was your favorite.
Well,
movie.
the second question would have been, which movie have you seen the most times? Actually watched the most times, and that would be Major League, original.
Then the next question would have been, what movie did you play in a band in?
Well, that's what happened on the Carrie tour. It was on, what was it,
We've had it on repeat. Every tour that you and me have ever done, we had it on repeat.
Yeah, I think we've seen it about 150 times. But so back in the, when they make movies behind the scenes, it's not like they just make it in 2 hours,
Yeah.
So they were at the stadium, and only about maybe a third or a quarter of the stadium is filled.
Yeah.
They fill in. So after they do a scene, they got to reshoot, and they got to, set everything up. Also look at the rushes and see if they, everything's good. So there's a time, there's probably hours between the time they, so the audience has to sit there, and wait while, you bring the new actors in, set up the cameras, make sure the last shots. So what they would do, and this was recorded at night because of the night scene. And this was probably like, midnight or something, so they want to keep the audience entertained. So we were hired as a band to go out and perform, to the crowd to kind of keep them, pumped up, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They put us on a, flatbed truck, and plus you have to wait. It's not like, okay, at 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock could be 1 o'clock in the morning. It could be.
You're just there on standby whenever they're ready.
And then you reel out until they go, okay, we reset the cameras and then, go back. So, I was sitting on the outfield, fence watching them film this movie. I don't know if we knew the name of it at that time.
Little did you know that you'd be on a bus.
Yes. So, Eek,
watching
I think it was Eek, and you guys got wind of that. So then it was on.
All the time.
All the time. Just a little outside.
Did you... And the worst part is that you probably didn't play Wild Thing that night.
Probably not, because we wouldn't have known.
Because you didn't know.
If we known, we definitely would have. Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. That is probably one of my favorite little tidbits that I've always just held really close to me is that
I'd get on
one of my favorite movies, before I even met the bus, before I was even into touring, I used to watch that movie because it was just so silly. So
it's still a great movie.
And here I meet you, and because at the time, you watch the movie and you're like, oh, they're filming it in Cleveland. No, they're filming it in Milwaukee.
Yep.
And what's hysterical is I never knew that until I watched it with Eek, and then he's like, you want to know a fun fact about that baseball stadium? And I was like, what? And he tells me, I was like, oh man, I was always under the impression that dang movie magic.
Yep. Well, it's funny. I'd get on the bus and it'd be on the, the TV.
Yep.
I'd wake up, it'd be on the TV. Yep. It was like, and to the point where I think every truck stop, I don't know why they would buy me a DVD. It'd be like in the $5 bin. And I remember one time I think I taped it to the radio.
You did.
So I had the DVD, just walking around, and even the hands are like, hey, I love that movie.
I love that.
Why do you have it taped on your radio? I said, it's a gag.
It's a gag.
Don't worry, it's a gag. So, it was the Major League Tour.
It was the Major League Tour. I absolutely love that. Jim, all I can say is thank you so much for coming out here and doing this with me, bringing up some old, amazing, fun memories, and then sharing your story with everyone, because I think it's really cool, like I've said before, what you're doing with music and introducing it to people, and now you're a grandfather and you get to continue sharing music with not only the world, but family. And I think that there's something really, really deep with music that bonds people for life.
I mean, one of favorite things we do is go to festivals, all of us. And my wife looks like a sister. I mean, they don't even, it looks like four sisters out there. And that's our,
that's
live.
Your fam.
That's our, thing we love to do together. So, good on them,
Well,
it's
good
great.
on you, man. Everything that you're doing is awesome, and I just really, really appreciate you giving me some time today. And we're almost at an hour and 30 minutes, so we did one of your shows almost.
Yes, the Top Jimmy Radio Hour.
So so you can listen to your show across most platforms of.
It's mainly on Mixcloud.
Okay.
You can go to, and it's a London base. So if you go, you can get the app. It's basically free. You can buy a subscription. There's a lot of stuff on there. You can always email me. I have a Gmail, so it's topjimmyradio@gmail.com. I can send you a link.
I'll put all you give me everything, and what I'll do is I'll put it on all of our pages and everything. Cool. We'll spread it around, and
it's free. So I can send you the link,
and it's friendly for businesses to play inside their doors. Like you said, your dentist plays it. So so that's
So a lot of people, like Chris Smith, people put on when they're working on gear, stuff like that. So it's a good,
it's a good all around eclectic.
I think Radio 29 became it was the number 18 of the global instrumental on the Mixcloud platform. I made a list.
Hey, you made a list, and then you made a list.
Yes.
All right. Well, give us one of your best sign-offs?
Well, usually it's like I do the the beginning is like, put on your face and join the race. Get in the know and enjoy the show. At the end, every show I end with this: never deny knowledge.
Love it.
That's the top Jimmy creed. Never deny knowledge.
Well, I think we're going to bottoms up and cheers on that, because
on
that's
the Bevy side.
On the Bevy side, because I have to say that's a pretty good little sign off, my friend. So
cheers.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll post up all of Jim's radio links, and on that, we're going to leave you with cheers and bottoms up. Have a great week.
Cheers. Oh, yeah.